Nintendo is a very old company. I don't think that statement is gonna be a surprise to anybody. Nintendo is old and we all know it. What I do think will surprise some people is just how old Nintendo actually is. I mean, we all know that Nintendo was around to witness the birth of the video game industry. But did you know that Nintendo also predates the start of World War I? That's not a joke, it's completely real. Which begs the question, why didn't Mario stop the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand? Initially founded in 1989 as Nintendo Karata, Nintendo's first ever business venture was Hanafuda cards, a form of playing card that used hand-painted art rather than the conventional suits and numbers to denote the card's rank and value in order to circumvent Japan's strict anti-gambling laws. Now, that is a massive oversimplification of Hanafuda cards and their history, but the sentence ends there. Nintendo remained the premier distributor of Hanafuda cards until the early 1960s, when Japan's interest in both Hanafuda cards and card-based gambling in general began to rapidly decline. In the hopes of capturing a new audience and safeguarding the company from bankruptcy, Nintendo's executives began expanding the company to new industries. Nintendo's employees found themselves experimenting with taxis, instant rice, and even a couple of love hotels. Sex. Before finally finding their footing in the toy industry. The company went on to create all kinds of unique and interesting toys that only a company as creative as Nintendo could possibly be expected to create, before breaking into the then burgeoning video game industry with their first ever arcade game, Eevee Race, in 1975. They released their first ever line of handheld systems, the Game & Watch, in 1980, and in 1981, Nintendo released their most popular arcade game ever, Donkey Kong. A game that cemented Nintendo's place as a titan of the industry, as well as marking the creation of the company's mascot Mario. And the rest is history. Well, technically it was all history, but shut up. In the nearly 50 years that followed Nintendo's initial entrance to the video game industry, Nintendo developed and published thousands of games from hundreds of franchises across well over a dozen systems. With this much history under their belt, it would have been all but inevitable that Nintendo would eventually create more than a few franchises that failed to find their way into the public consciousness, wildly underperformed at the time of their release, or just never really found an audience. Of course, we all know about franchises like Metroid or Fire Emblem that initially failed to find their footing before eventually finding massive success in recent years. Games like Chibi-Robo and Earthbound, which wildly undersold at the time of their release, but have since come to be seen as cult classic franchises with die-hard fans clamoring for their returns. And games like Codename Steam, Steel Diver, and the entire Virtual Boy library, which never failed to find their way into discussions about Nintendo's greatest failures. But what about the franchises that never found their cult following? The series that failed to leave any real impact on the company's history, and the games that no one ever seems to talk about. Today, I've decided to discuss 5 of my favorite wildly underappreciated Nintendo franchises in the hopes of finally showing them the love they truly deserve. So without further ado, I desperately need to find new ways to transition between paragraphs. Starting off with a personal favorite, Big Brain Academy. Often overlooked in favor of its far more mature older brother Brain Age, Big Brain Academy is a series of educational puzzle-based minigame compilations with a heavy emphasis on brain teasers and competitive multiplayer. The franchise boasts a large collection of diverse and creative minigames designed to test and hone mental skills such as memorization, computation, and identification. And although there is very little evidence that games like Big Brain Academy have any real impact on a player's intelligence, no one is playing this game for the brain training aspect. The games are already plenty of fun on their own. They don't need to make you smarter. You've got one that's kind of like whack-a-mole, another that requires you to solve basic math problems in quick successions, another one that has you identifying blurry pictures of animals, and many, many more. The first game in the series was released on the Nintendo DS as a part of Nintendo's Touch Generation series, which was a line of games specifically designed to cater to a broader and more casual audience than traditional Nintendo games. A marketing scheme that angered thousands of gamers who were completely unaffected by it. The series included titles like Personal Trainer Walking, 100 classic books, multiple literal cookbooks, and of course, Big Brain Academy. The first game in the series was relatively well received and sold a whopping 6 million copies. Following the first game's impressive commercial success, Nintendo released a sequel on the Wii, Big Brain Academy Wii Degree. It was largely the same as the original game, save for a few new minigames and a heavy emphasis on turning the franchise into a party game. Wii Degree boasted a number of alternate modes not present in the DS entry, all centered around 4-player fun. Big Brain Academy Wii Degree is easily one of the most unique and engaging party games on a console renowned for its massive library of iconic party games. Unfortunately, it only managed to sell about 3 million copies, which despite being a genuine commercial success, is still a massive step down from the record of 6 million copies sold by its predecessor, and is likely the reason for the franchise's 14-year hiatus. Now, the franchise did eventually receive a third entry on the Nintendo Switch in 2021 titled Big Brain Academy Brain vs. Brain. Now, there really isn't much to say about this entry since it is largely the same as the first two. However, it does manage to maintain the same level of quality as previous entries in the series, despite having significantly less content than the entry on Wii, a running theme with most modern Nintendo games. And as the title suggests, Brain vs. Brain does indeed have a significantly heavier emphasis on 1v1 competitive gameplay as opposed to the 4-person free-for-alls of Wii Degree. This new style of play is a lot of fun, and fortunately, the game does still have 4-player multiplayer built in and can still function as a genuinely entertaining party game. Unfortunately, the newest entry also came with another drop in sales, as Big Brain Academy Brain vs. Brain only managed to sell 1.6 million copies and will likely be the last game in the franchise because only an idiot would continue pouring money into a franchise with perpetually dwindling sales. It is a shame though. I really do like these games. The Legendary Starfy is a series of water-based platformers featuring a young starfish whose name you will never guess. The game was developed by Tosei, an infamous Ghost developer with a long history of secretly working on Nintendo games, but it was licensed and published by Nintendo, so technically, it is a Nintendo franchise by the loosest possible definition, and also according to this unofficial wiki. But honestly, I don't care. I just want a chance to talk about one of my favorite childhood games. Now, the franchise has 5 games across the Game Boy Advance and Nintendo DS libraries, but only the 5th and final game was ever released outside of Japan. Also, for some reason, it was released in the United States and Australia, but not Europe. Looks like England loses again, baby! The rest of Europe was collateral damage, a necessary evil in the entire world's endless war against the British. Now, I've only played the 5th game in this series because, in case you can't tell, I'm an American. Sorry. But what I did play was a treat. It was a cute and energetic game with tight platforming, likable characters, a downright gorgeous art style, and a creative story about helping a space bunny with amnesia repair his spaceship and regain his memories. And from what I've seen from the only YouTube video I could find on the topic, the rest of the franchise maintains the same level of quality. Honestly, I could sing this game's praises for hours, but nothing I could possibly say will ever be more impressive than the fact that this game is a platformer comprised almost entirely of water levels where every single level is an absolute banger. How do you exist? It's kind of hard to believe that this franchise has largely been forgotten outside of Japan when you consider its high sales and exceptional quality, but I suppose only having one game localized and the massive oversaturation of 2D platformers on the DS probably didn't do it any favors. Endless Ocean and its sequel Endless Ocean Blue World are a pair of scuba diving simulation games released on the Wii in 2007 and 2009 respectively. The games were developed by Japanese developer Eureka and licensed and published by Nintendo. So once again, this franchise only counts by technicality. But it's also the series that inspired this entire video and No! No! I don't have to justify myself to you. I'm not even real! I'm one of the tiny little people inside of your phone. The two games have the player exploring the titular endless oceans of the big blue marble we call home, interacting with various sea creatures and cataloging the vast ocean's many ecosystems. The controls and story can be a bit clunky at times, but the franchise is immersive, creative, and extremely well executed, both in terms of its gameplay and visuals. The sequel is particularly impressive as it adds a diverse variety of new locations, new activities, and new sea creatures for the player to discover and interact with, successfully making the virtual ocean feel truly endless. The franchise as a whole achieved relative critical and commercial success, possibly even enough to justify continuing the franchise, with the real reasons for its indefinite hiatus likely being due to the fact that the Endless Ocean games put Eureka firmly on Nintendo's radar and directly led to them collaborating on several games, including but not limited to Tetris 99, Super Mario 35, multiple entries in the Dr. Mario franchise, and the entirety of Nintendo's 3D Classics collection. These days, Eureka's schedule is simply too packed for them to have much time to work on any games of their own. And honestly, it's probably for the best, since all of the games they have worked on since establishing their relationship with Nintendo have either been pretty damn good or Chocobo GP. Startropics is probably best described as an action RPG more in line with games like Zelda and Secret of Mana than the traditional turn-based RPGs, platformers, and beat-em-ups that dominated the NES. It's got a cute and engaging combat system centered around this goofy-ass yo-yo. Eat your heart out, NES. Mike Jones did it first. The story sees the player traveling across a series of islands, fighting creatively designed enemies in the hopes of finding his missing uncle and stopping an alien invasion. The game is a lot of fun and looks really good when compared to a lot of similar NES games. Now, I haven't gotten around to playing the second game yet, but if it's anything like the original, I am in for a great time. Both games sold relatively well and received genuine critical acclaim, with the original Startropics making it onto Nintendo Power's 1997 Top 100 Games of All Time and getting called the natural evolution of the original Legend of Zelda by IGN's Lucas M. Thomas. Despite its critical and commercial success, the Startropics franchise has been all but forgotten by both Nintendo and Nintendo fans, likely due to the fact that it is one of the few first-party Nintendo franchises that didn't receive any new entries after the NES. In the nearly 30 years following the franchise's first installment, the legacy of the Startropics franchise has largely been whittled down to a single fun fact about a secret code hidden in a physical letter included in the game's box, which is a crying shame. But hey, at least people are still saying something about this incredible game. Panel de Pon is a puzzle game where you match sets of colorful blocks to keep them from reaching the top of the screen. Comparisons to games like Tetris and Bejeweled are inevitable, but Tetris Attack really is its own thing. You see, in Puzzle League, the blocks come up from the ground in rows rather than falling from the ceiling, and you need to quickly clear each row before the stack of blocks gets too high. It's a deceptively complex and fast-paced game, and at higher difficulties, the player is required to plan out their moves several steps in advance to even have a hope at winning, or even just surviving for a few more seconds. Puzzle Challenge is a lot of fun, and honestly, I think it might be one of the best puzzle games ever, both in terms of single-player fun and 1v1 competitive multiplayer. Now, you may have noticed that I referred to this series by 4 different names, and that's because every entry in the franchise received a different name. I've already talked about this in a previous video, which you should go watch, but the original game was released on the Super Famicom as Panel de Pon. When it was brought over to the States, Nintendo wanted to take advantage of their access to the Tetris license, so they changed the name to Tetris Attack. They then lost the Tetris license not long after, so when they released the sequel, they named it Pokemon Puzzle League. And then the next entry in the franchise was released under the name of Pokemon Puzzle Challenge before Nintendo finally returned to the Puzzle League branding with the final 2 games in the franchise, Planet Puzzle League and Puzzle League Express. This confusing and disjointed naming convention, the franchise's unfortunate association with the Tetris brand, the fact that the series never really managed to find an audience to call its own without relying on the popularity of Tetris and Pokemon, and the fact that the franchise's last game came out in 2009 and and its last good game came out in 2000, all contributed to the franchise's relative obscurity. And with Nintendo moving away from developing first-party puzzle games like Dr. Mario, Yoshi's Cookie, and Puzzle League, there is a decent chance that we have seen the last of this incredible franchise. But there is always the off chance that Panel de Pon and Pokemon Puzzle League's appearance on Nintendo Switch Online could lead to renewed interest in the series and eventually a new game. Puzzle League 99, anybody? So there you have it. A list of games that I love, but no one else really seems to care about. It would be nice if these games finally found their fans and renewed interest led to new releases, but at the end of the day, I feel like the average gamer would rather have a new F-Zero or Kid Icarus than a new Endless Ocean or Startropics. I made the damn video, and even I would rather have like a new Dr. Mario or Chibi Robo or Punch-Out! I don't know, maybe it's for the best. Maybe some things are just meant to be forgotten. I mean, we all will be eventually. I, for one, already have been forgotten. My parents left me in a Walmart when I was 5, and I've been looking for them ever since.
Way to go! Keep on trying!